Welcome back to Plant Etc. Today we're going to focus on what seeds you need to start in March. We'll take a look at our January seeds to see if we need to put them outdoors, and we'll take a quick look at the February seeds to check on their progress. March is the perfect time to start your seeds indoors for vegetables like kale, beets, and Swiss chard. It's excellent because they are hardy vegetables that are perfectly suited for this kind of weather right now in spring, when the temperatures are still a little low and the days are a little shorter. If you don't know how to start your seeds, refer back to one of my videos that I have on starting seeds. Kale is part of the superfood family. It is a vegetable full of nutrient. It's got magnesium, iron, vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin K. It has everything. The seeds are also very easy to start indoor. Start them while the temperature is still cold. Start them now in March and you'll be able to transplant them out by the end of March. You will see there's different varieties of kale on the market. You have the common curly kale, you have some Siberian kale, and you also have the Italian kale, the lacinato kale. Kale will tolerate lots of winter frost, no problem at all. It will also just come back just as vigorous come the springtime. Beets, just like kale, can handle really cold temperature and will be fine to leave in the ground in the winter. Start your seeds now indoors. That way you can ensure that in the early spring you'll have a great harvest. Try different types of beets this year. Try the golden beets if you'd like a more milder flavor. They're not as strong as the regular red beets. And then give the candy striped beets a little bit a chance. They look so great in any salad. Now when collecting your beets, you'll just shake them off, let them dry off a little bit. No need to really rinse them off too much, and keep them in the fridge. They last quite a while. Swiss chard, such a beautiful plant to have in the garden with its beautiful red stem and all the colors that it comes into. Now, start your seeds in March right now to ensure that you're going to have these beautiful leaf greens throughout the summer and into the fall. Swiss chard can tolerate fluctuating temperatures, and if you're lucky, you can still have them even in December around Christmas time. They are perfect for soups and stews, so enjoy. Now let's look at seeds that you started back in January. Hopefully you started your lettuce, spinach, coriander, parsley, peas, and broad beans, and even some radishes. Let's see what we do with them next. Now, lettuce and spinach are cold hardy vegetables. They can tolerate a light frost, but they also need a lot of sunlight. So the best time to move them outside is when the temperature is constantly above freezing, but before the heat of the summer starts, because you don't want them to bolt too early. Now, coriander and parsley are a bit more sensitive. They like it cool, but they do not tolerate a frost. So if you're in a colder climate, wait until your last expected frost date before you transition them outside. Here in zone 8 in March, we can actually get away with putting some of these beautiful herbs, coriander and parsley, outside in the garden. Now for peas. Peas are my favorite plants. They can handle the light frost, so you can move them outside as soon as the soil can be worked. However, keep a close eye on the weather in case the forecast really changes and there's a hard freeze that could be coming up. So you might want to protect them a little bit with some cover row, or if you have a cold frame, just plant them under the cold frame. Broad beans are so frost tolerant. You can even start them in the winter. If you're like in zone 8, you could plant them in November and they will sprout up, and then you'll have some early in the spring. If you're in a cooler area, as soon as you can work the soil, just plant them directly in the soil. If you want to start them indoor, you can also do that, but just don't let them get too leggy before you plant them out. As soon as you see they're about 1 or 2 inches, just go and plant them outside. They're some of the first vegetables that you can harvest early in the spring, so get them in the ground early. Radish, just like all the other vegetables we talked about today, they are very frost tolerant. The seeds are very easy to handle. You can direct sow them in the ground. As soon as the soil can be worked, just get out there and put the radishes out. If you plant them a little too close together, like sometimes I do, you just need to thin them out a little bit so you can allow each plant enough room to grow and become a big enough of a radish for you to enjoy. Get them out early in the spring and you'll start collecting them sometime in mid to late April. Now let's have a look at the progress of the seeds that we planted back in February. Our peppers, our eggplant, celery, basil, and tomatoes, and of course our sweet peas. Let's see how they're progressing. Now your peppers and eggplants should be showing their first true leaves. These aren't the leaves that appear right away when the seeds first sprout. They're the ones that follow. They're a clear sign that your seedlings are maturing and are ready to start photosynthesizing. So keep a lookout for the first true leaves on your peppers and eggplant. Now moving on to celery and basil. Your celery may at this point resemble a little bit of the adult form, but they are so slow to grow you might not actually see anything right now. But don't give up. They will show up at some point. You will see some little leaves come up and they will actually look like the real form of the celery. Now for your basil on the other hand, they are much of a quicker grower. You should have a little bit of a bushy plant by now, and you can even smell it when you kind of brush your hand over it. These are all the beautiful promises of summer with your basil just kind of coming out and getting ready for summer. Now for your tomatoes. If you didn't start them in February, it's okay. You still have a little bit of time. You can start them this first week of March, and that should be fine. So your tomatoes, if you started them in February, they'll be strong by now. You'll see some nice true leaves on them too. The leaves that of course appear after the first the first seedling sprouted leaves. So they're eager, so they're going to start to grow very fast. Consider transplanting them into a larger pot if you notice that they're becoming crowded in the container that they're in. Now your sweet peas. Now if you started them in February, you should have a little bit of growth in your container right now, and they're going to be ready to venture outside very shortly. They are frost tolerant and can withstand pretty cool weather. Remember when you take them outside to give them a little bit of a trellis and some room to grow. Don't plant them too close together. They will grow really fast. Now let's review the process of hardening off. So what is hardening off? Hardening off is moving your plants from a controlled indoor environment like you have in your nice warm space in your house to the unpredictable weather outside. And that can be a shock to their system. So it's important to acclimatize them gradually. This process can take a few weeks to happen. Start by placing the plants outside in a sheltered spot for about a few hours a day, gradually increasing the amount of time they spend outdoor over a week or two. This will help them adjust to the wind, the sun, and the changing temperature. And remember, all plants are individual. Some might take to the new environment right away, such as your peas, things that are more frost tolerant, but others you need to be a bit more patient and keep an eye on them. Keep moving them in and out so you don't stress them out completely. This will take a few days, just be patient. A successful transition now sets the stage for a healthy harvest later. So take your time, do not rush this process. Now that you've worked hard on your plants and they're ready to be set outside, they look great, you're going to put them out there and they're going to be introduced to some friendly, of course, beneficial insects like the ladybugs, but they will also be exposed to pests such as snails and slugs. Now, to ensure that your snails and slug don't feast on your plant and completely devastate them, you will need to consider what option you want to take to protect your plants. You can decide that you will use beer bait, which is basically putting out some beer and then the slugs will drown in the beer. If you decide you don't want to share your beer though, with the slugs, you will have to consider an alternative. There's some good eco-friendly, safe pellets that are out on the market now that you can use to keep them under control. So consider your options, but protect your little plants. Now let's turn to the compost. The compost is the process by which you take your kitchen scraps and turn them into fertilizer for your plants. So just keep adding your kitchen scrap into your compost and eventually they will turn into fertilizer. But to do that, you will have to help it. You need to turn your compost. So you need to mix it thoroughly. This is the way that you introduce fresh oxygen into the mix, which the microorganism in the compost need to be able to break down the organic material that you're adding to it. So this compost will be rich and will really help fertilize your plants really for free. So what you should be doing is once your compost is done, add it to your soil. You will see a real benefit to your plant by adding this free nutrients to it will really help it out. So don't skip the process of mixing your compost. This provides your garden with valuable nutrients throughout the spring. Happy gardening!